Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to kerrylutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
Great news. We've got a sponsor. This show is now brought to you by Miles Franklin. And when it comes to protecting your wealth, you know there's nothing better than gold and silver. That's what I'm buying. I hope you're doing the same. And once you make the decision to buy gold and silver, there's no better place than Miles Franklin. Look, they've been in business 22 years. And the reason I'm a customer is because when you buy, they ship. Go to milesfranklin.com or call them at 800-822-8080 to get a free quote. 1490 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz, along with Chris Duane, the Silver Shield, and you're listening to the Financial Survival Network, as well as don't-tread-on.me. And Chris, we're talking about a slow news cycle. We're leading up to the holidays. Right after the holidays, it's all going to hit the fan. So keep the sheeple happy. Feed them unobjectionable little bits of news. Yeah, well, maybe the dollar's losing its reserve status. Maybe we're ready for the next war. But for right now, just keep the news as unobjectionable as oatmeal, right?
Yeah, it like we were kind of looking through all the topics that we could cover today, and it's like, God, there's just nothing going on. But there is so much going on. It's scary. This next report that I'm going to be doing for my members is, about this powder keg about to blow, and we're just looking for the right match. There's huge shifts going on right now. And yet, if you look at the news, you hear about this Trayvon shooting with the hoods and, the Tide being stolen.
Don't forget, money launderers prefer Tide 2-1 over the competition. Like they don't want Whisk for some reason. See advertising. You see how that works.
Yep. And then this news cycle is all about the lotto and stuff like that. But there's major stuff going on. The John Corzine has now been found to not been totally truthful when he testified.
I'm shocked. I am so shocked.
J.P. Morgan, I think, took $200 million from MF Global the day before, and then now is in charge of it at MF Global in bankruptcy. And that's small peanuts. The real big things that are going on is this 2-day conference between the BRICS. So everybody knows about Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Well, it's been expanded to include South Africa, so now it's BRICS. And I have been talking with my members and in the Sons of Liberty Academy about this anti-hegemon, whereas the original BRIC nations was proffered by Goldman Sachs saying, hey, these are rising, third world economically challenging nations. And in the Sons of Liberty Academy, I said, no, they're not just economic competitors, they're military competitors, they're social world dominating competitors, and I call them the anti-hegemon. Because they're not going to fall in the same line as these Asian tigers were back in the 90s when Korea and Malaysia and Taiwan were like, oh, they're growing and they're doing so well, and then they fell into the same fate that Japan did, where they just became high in themselves, loaded up with debt, and they've disappeared into nothingness for the last decade, and in Japan's case 20, 30 years. These BRICS nations, they're not following the same path as Japan and the Asian tigers. They're energy exporters. They have current balance of payments that's in the plus column, China being the biggest amongst them. And they're doing the exact opposite consciousness of what the United States has been doing. Our whole life is built on spreading debt and death throughout the world. I mean, there's no objectionable way of looking at the way our world functions without understanding that our world thrives on creating unlimited amount of debt, and that funds a global military empire that secures the world's resources for our corporations to harvest, and to bring more wealth up to the top and ship more jobs overseas, and then ultimately to fund a domineering government that wants to put their boot on our face. But if you look at what the BRICS are doing, they're going around the world being the opposite consciousness of, instead of offering debt through IMF and World Bank loans, they're offering contracts, they're offering deals, they're making friends, they're creating new ways of trading, and they're starting to build this core group that they have now. But China's been making some screamingly loud, bold moves, and it's something that people really need to pay attention to, because this when this all goes down, our whole way of life, it revolves around this petrodollar trade, which is the center of this debt and death thing, our way of life, and all the world is looking for is a viable alternative. Well, the BRICS are working on it, folks.
Yeah, unfortunately, and they it essentially comes out to barter deals among them, settled up in some currency, but none of them are on the gold standard either. None of them are using real money. So they were kind of spawned by the Anglo-American banking empire, financial elite. They were spawned, and they're kind of like these little Frankensteins that got out of control. But in the final analysis, it's all going to have to go back to free money and gold and away from fiat currencies. Now, it looks like China might be heading in that direction, but until there's a country out there with the guts to come out with a commodity-backed currency and a real currency with real money, you got to be questioning, are they just going to substitute one false paradigm for another? That's my concern, because if the money is worthless, if it has no intrinsic value, then we just substituted one devil for another.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that China's renminbi is somehow better than our dollar. They're all based on the same fundamental lie. And while the BRICS are trying to insulate themselves from a dollar paradigm, and they're doing it very slowly, they're not causing trouble. Although their recent defense of Syria and Iran certainly is a stake in the eye, especially with 2 UN Security Council votes that Russia and China rejected. When they try to push the screws on Assad and Syria. Given the fact that the BRIC nations have very little gold and silver relative to the amount of currency they have, they cannot make precious metal based currency. I mean, they would be shooting themselves in the foot. But the total power of the world revolves around oil, and Iran is now that final case of the petrodollar. It's either they dominate Iran, or this whole paradigm is going to end, because the BRIC nations are rejecting the dollar. I mean, China and Japan, 2 months ago, got rid of their $2 trillion worth of bilateral trade done in dollars, and decided to settle in local currencies. Well, the BRIC nations are pushing for an equivalent of an IMF, and not having begged at the seat of power of the Anglo-American Empire to have more say in the UN, to have more say in the IMF, to have more say in the World Bank. They're doing what I suggest everybody does on their own personal level: walk away. By begging inside the system, China, Russia, Brazil, all these other major nations, who, by the way, have just their combined economic power is $20 trillion a year. And when you relate that to the United States and Europe, that these group of nations, and they're growing, whereas Europe and United States are, teetering on the edge of insolvency, these nations can be a very big force. But what they're doing is they're saying, hey, and it's the exact same thing I've been telling people in their own personal lives. Don't fight the system. Don't even participate in the system. Create your own paradigm. Become independent of them. And that's what China, Russia and India, Japan, or Brazil and South Africa are doing. They're creating their own monetary paradigm. And it's not only going as far as the IMF, but they're also going to have intercurrency links. And they, this recent announcement that they're making more political support for Iran and Syria. These are something people should be watching after, not the stupid Trayvon story.
I don't know, man. After hearing all that, I'm more concerned now than ever about the mega jackpot because it just hit 640 million.
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God, it's 640 million.
And what's the chances of actually hitting that?
Well, I think it's 1 in 100 million. So it's actually, from a odds standpoint, buying one ticket is kind of a good deal because, you're getting 5.5 times or 6.5 times potential payback over what you're paying for the ticket. Not that, but the odds are so high against you. But you're getting a good play. You don't get
what's
that good a play.
What's that line about the president?
What's that? Yeah, I would say that your odds of winning that jackpot are probably better than someone born in Kenya becoming president of the United States. If I had to take my guess, but we won't get into that because I could tell you from my days of being in the printing business, I know how to detect certain kinds of forgeries but I'm not going to get into it because it doesn't matter.
It's another distractive issue. Just like the Tide story, like all this thing. Anything that my biggest thing that I ask people to do is always challenge the perceived reality. Whatever's on the front page is unimportant. Go to page 8. Go to alternative websites. Look underneath and steer your eye towards whatever is funding it.
Here's
it's always follow the money in the murder mysteries. Well, all of our problems go right back down to our central bank. So that's where we need to keep our eye on.
Yeah, but in more important news, Britney Spears sold her Beverly Hills home to move in with her fiance. So, she got $4 million. So, you got to keep these things in perspective. Forget about Obamacare. It's probably going to be blown up. It's probably better that it's blown up, even though I don't think it's really going to matter in the scheme of things. When history looks back, it won't even be a footnote. It's so irrelevant because of the debt, the bankruptcy of the system, the failure of the system. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It really makes no difference. It's just good to see that maybe sometimes justice can come up with an honest judgment, but we'll see about that. But then there's another one. I'm just looking at the New York Post because that's where you get the real news. Nicki Minaj has wardrobe malfunction, beefs with J-Lo on Idol. You know anything about that?
No.
We got to be looking at these. These are important stories. You got to understand.
I guarantee if I asked my wife, she would know. Or the complete opposite. She's,
Oh, here it is.
Living the American dream, and I'm, trying to tear it down by reality.
Exactly. Here it is. Nicki Minaj, if that's how you say her name, both busted out of her low-cut top and started a verbal war with Jennifer Lopez while appearing on American Idol last night. Now, these are the important things. Forget about the death of the Anglo-American Empire. She looks really weird, this one. Ugh. Man, this is why I don't read the Post normally. Because I wind up, I'm following a legitimate story, and then all of a sudden I'm reading about American Idol.
Yeah.
And what's the point of this?
Yeah.
No good can come from this, right? No good can come from it. But, hey, this is the world in which we live here. But, yeah, things are changing real quick. Wait till after the holidays. I think we'll get one slam during the holidays on gold and silver, just so the elites can let us know that they're still hanging on and they're not disappearing so quick. And then we'll go on.
I mean, in April, if you look out throughout history, I mean, I think the Revolutionary War started in April. I think the Civil War started in April. Like, major developments tend to happen in April because it's, all the simmering discord. People don't do anything during the wintertime, but when it starts getting nice out and people start getting out and talking and doing things, April is a very, interesting time. And when you look at the gold and silver charts, not that I'm a big technical analysis, because I believe that you can't use technical analysis in such a rigged market, but you can't help but to look at the gold and silver markets and seeing these formations and the descending triangle with gold. It's
so bullish.
Yeah, so bullish. I mean, it's like very, very bullish. And then the one I always watch is silver. You got this 30-year cup and handle formation,
and head and shoulders, and all
yeah.
That
Now we got
stuff.
a reverse head and shoulders that looks perfectly to line up at the beginning of April. So, maybe this is it for the big one, but who knows? But I can tell you what, if I end up buying a lottery ticket and I end up winning, I will make sure that there's no physical silver available in the world. So
you will get to sit down with Eric Sprott. You and Eric Sprott will sit down. And interestingly, going back to what you just said, internet's a wonderful thing. Assuming that they haven't changed history, that they haven't gone back and erased things. Mm-hmm. The Revolutionary War started on April 18th. Mm-hmm. Of 1775, mm-hmm. and the Civil War started on April 12th of 1861 with the bombardment of Fort Sumter.
And I'm pretty sure that it ended in April too, the Civil War.
I think you're right about that. If I had to take my guess, I would say that you're probably right. Well, last shot fired.
No,
June
like
22nd,
when Lincoln assassinated. When
April
did
9th.
They? Yeah.
April 9th. But the last shot, because back then they didn't have they didn't have the internet, so it's like those Japanese
they get the email saying, "Okay, guys, it's over."
It's like those Japanese prisoners of war, or the Japanese guys out in the Pacific Islands. 30 years later, they think the war is still going on.
Yeah, meanwhile, they come home and see what their kids look like.
Yeah, their grandchildren. God, I remember hearing those stories like 10 years later, and it was just mind-boggling that that you could be that out of the loop, and that they could live on their own for all those years with nothing. That's pretty amazing. But hey, we've got the internet, we're connected, and that's why the whole thing is really falling apart, because the information's out there.
Oh, and yeah, one other thing, and I don't know if people are going to hear this, but this group Anonymous is talking about shutting down the internet tomorrow.
Oh, yeah?
They're going to attack the DNS servers. So, I've always felt WikiLeaks was a CIA front.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a question.
Yeah. And now, I've seen Anonymous, they put out really good videos. Every single thing that I've, hasn't sniffed bad. Mm-hmm. They point out the Federal Reserve. They point out some of the bad guys that are out there, and they don't seem to worry about, nonsensical stuff. They really want to go at the heart of it. But, who's to say who Anonymous is? I mean, one of the benefits of doing this is that they could be, CIA doing this, and that this is a, counterintelligence thing to, get potential hackers that would disrupt the system, have them work for you, just like, these cop stories. They get the bad guy, they arrest him and say, okay, either you work for us or you're going to jail for the rest of your life, and they end up working for them as double. Well, who's to say that they're not doing it with these hackers? But anything that would attack or shutting down the internet is very suspicious to me, and has now started to make me wonder who Anonymous is. And despite all their good efforts, if they end up doing this, I don't see what the benefit of shutting down the entire internet would be to spreading information and truth throughout society. So
let me tell you something about that.
And also, that was one of my predictions, that the three coming false flags. Not only would they need a economic false flag to cover the dollar collapse, they would need a military false flag to cover the petrodollar. And go for the fail forward and push for Iran. But I also said that there would be a informational false flag where they would use that as an excuse to shut down the internet, or truth sites like ours or limit speech. As a way of the government, basically controlling the three main threats of this paradigm. the financial collapse of the dollar, the military collapse of our petrodollar, and information that's making people wake up.
Hey, well, I've always felt from the get-go that Anonymous was some disinformation campaign, because some of the stuff, I just couldn't believe that politicians could be that stupid and send it in writing. I just thought, hey, this is a brilliant creation here, and it's being used by the elites somehow, or to get at the elites. But when you were saying all this, it's making me think of Road to Ruta with Bix Weir, which I like Bix, had him on many times, but I never quite bought into this good versus evil from a cartoon.
Yeah, Ron Paul's going to win and Ben Bernanke's going to save us. I don't get that.
There's no possible way that Ron Paul's going to win. I like the guy. Yeah. I definitely am simpatico with him in terms of economic philosophy. Other things I don't necessarily agree with, but he can't possibly win. They won't allow him to win. Not going to happen. And yet, there are people that really think he's our last hope. And
folks, nobody is coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you.
Yep.
Not Ron Paul, not Jesus, not Kerry, not Silver Shield. No one is coming to save you. And I've been meaning to put this video together, basically saying no one's coming to get you and no one's coming to save you. All of our problems start and stop with us. We don't need, some collective. We don't need some hero. All we need to do is see things as they are, use logic, become independent of the system on every level that you can. Do it slowly, do it purposefully, just do it. And you'll realize that you don't need anybody to save you, and nobody's coming to get you. All these, the government buying 450 million, 40 caliber rounds. All these new executive orders where they own your water, they own your car, all that's fine and dandy. But in this reality that we're in right now, nobody's going to come to your house and knock down your door like in China and make you just disappear. So this is the time that you need to stand up, be bold, do the right thing. And stop looking for Ron Paul to save you. Stop looking for Road to Ruta. Stop looking for other things to come get you, because you'll always be let down. That's the problem. No matter who you hope for, they're human, and they can't save you from yourself. We're the ones that are using their money. We're the ones buying from their corporation. We're the ones volunteering for the war. We're the ones that are enabling the system. If people walked away and became independent, there would be no system.
Absolutely,
and we would be more powerful.
No question. You are the only one who can save yourself, which is why you need to have the plan, which is why you need to go visit don't-tread-on.me and our new site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We're following all the top stories on there, both of them. Sign up for our mailing list. Get connected. Stop being a dupe. You don't have to be a victim. You can take control. That's what you need to do now. Anyway, Chris, till next week.
Yep.
Always a pleasure.
Yep. Take care, Kerry.
And hopefully we'll have some more amusing stories to go over, because this is really going to be a slow news week.
Yeah.
Just be prepared. Really slow. Nothing happening, but under the surface, it's all going on.
Yeah, I think we got 10 days till Easter, and
and then the revolution starts.
Who knows? The point is, whether it happens, today, tomorrow. I mean, I've technically been ready for 7 years. I'd rather be 7 years too early than 1 day too late to this.
Yeah, you're totally correct. It's not too late to buy gold and silver, and silver especially, the poor man's gold. Get it, because you never know. Maybe Chris and I are totally crazy and we don't know what we're talking about. On the other hand, you don't know that, and you might find out that we're right, and you find out a day too late. And how's that going to help you?
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
All right. Hey, new video coming up?
Yeah, I did. The last two videos I just did, one is called My one question to Ron Paul, I actually had the opportunity, or one of our subscribers had the opportunity of asking Ron Paul the very first question at a campaign stop. And my question was, basically, Ron's done. He gave up his House seat. He's not going to go anywhere with this presidential election. The only hope I can possibly even dream about is Romney picking him as VP, simply so that he doesn't, that's good insurance that Romney doesn't get whacked, because they wouldn't want to put Ron in as president.
or Rand Paul too. That's the other choice, which probably is a better choice.
Well, my question unfortunately Ron didn't properly hear because it was just too much noise in the room, was that, it was that Albert Einstein quote that you cannot solve a problem with the same consciousness that created the problem. You have to see the world anew. And the question that I had, and I don't have it verbatim, was basically that, do you think it's better that we look to create ways outside of the paradigm to make ourselves, economically or politically independent, versus spending our time, effort, and money legitimizing a political and economic system that is against us? And unfortunately, Ron heard it as, why don't you run as a third party? And I agree with his answer. But in the video, my one question to Ron Paul, it's basically rephrasing that same question and saying, hey, now that you're done with, working 30 years inside the political, whorehouse of Washington, D.C., now that the presidential runs are over, they've been very successful in raising awareness. But now you have a whole group of people out there who are waiting to hear what's going to happen next. And I think the best legacy that Ron could say is to say, hey, I've tried to work within the paradigm. Now I'm only going to work outside the paradigm. I want people to become independent of the paradigm, not waste their time on these federal elections that are completely rigged and bought and paid for and controlled. Stop buying from these corporations. Stop banking at the Wall Street. Stop holding dollars, buy gold and silver, all the things that you and I talk about, and become independent of the system. And essentially stop working like JFK, who got whacked, and work more like Gandhi and MLK, who worked outside the paradigm and became independent and powerful themselves. Much like how these, BRICS nations are. I mean, they're not begging at the seat of power anymore. They're making their own power. And that's what I think Ron could be able to do. And then the last video I put together is something I've been waiting to do for a long time. Is a redo of Bob Dylan's song Masters of War. Mm-hmm. And Pearl Jam did a cover of it. And essentially I took the 5 major false flags and put it towards this song. And if you haven't seen it, it's probably one of my most powerful videos, mainly because it's got a really powerful song behind it. But just, I really enjoy it. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people have seen it because I put it on my other YouTube channel. But, Google Masters of War, and look up recent things. And it's also on my blog too. Don't-tread-on.me.
All right. Hey, till next week, you have a prosperous and healthy and fun week ahead, Chris.
All right. Take care, Kerry.